Welcome to the writer reads The Strays of Lunar One, Book 2, The Unwanted, Chapter 3, A Hard Bargain. What makes you think you have anything to offer? The voice demanded. Oliver sighed and waited for the inevitable declaration that he and Lewis were being apprehended, and the voice's owner certainly seemed to be thinking that way. With the size of the rewards in play, we could more than make our money back by auctioning you to the highest bidder. Oliver waited. There was no point protesting. Something in the way the voice was speaking told him that their fate was already a foregone conclusion, although when Nettles had had the time to make the decision was anyone's guess. He and Lewis had only been cut loose that morning. After a moment's silence, the voice continued. You both come with more skills than your incomplete Star Shadow training gives you, and we've had a short notice opportunity arise for which you'd be a perfect fit. Are you interested? We will not move against the pack, Oliver told him shortly. Funny, that's what your friend said, too, the voice countered. And nor would we ask you. We already know the usual response for such requests, and your profiles say you'd answer no differently. Oliver blinked. They had profiles at Nettles? What? Why did they have profiles at Nettles? He kept his head down while he schooled the surprise from his face, and wondered what else their profiles said about them. As if oblivious to the turmoil it had caused, the voice continued, pressing again for an answer. The task we have in mind does not involve you moving against the pack. Are you interested? Payment? The voice chuckled. Well, we'll refrain from organizing an immediate auction for possession of your persons for a start. Oliver frowned. That's all very well and good, but we require transport to a safe area and confidentiality regarding the drop point for a year afterward. No confidentiality, but transport to a safe area. 6 months of confidentiality, and we have to agree on the drop point. You learn quickly, Mr. Landstrom. The voice did not sound happy. But, agreed, transport to a safe area. You get to verify the drop point safety and will be granted a 3-month period of confidentiality. Done, Oliver told him, and a door appeared in the wall before him. The first thing he heard as it opened was his beater's voice. Oliver! Lewis's shout was accompanied by the sound of running footsteps and a resounding thump. Oliver! Oliver sighed and stepped through the door, looking in the direction of the shout. Sure enough, Lewis had run into a wall. Oliver took in the guards advancing slowly from the other end of the corridor and glanced over his shoulder. 2 more guards stood at the corridor's opposite end, but they'd left their weapons in their holsters and had their thumbs hooked through their belts. Oliver turned back to his friend. Oliver! Lewis pulled himself out of the wall and staggered upright, looking up. His face, when he caught sight of Oliver, was comical in its relief. Oliver, they... Lewis stopped as Oliver held up his hand. I know, he said. We're taking the job. He stilled Lewis's half-formed response by holding his hand up and shaking his head. In return, they're transporting us to a safe drop point and holding the location in confidentiality for 3 months. 3? Lewis was outraged. It's better than none, Oliver told him. Now why don't we ask these gentlemen to escort us to where the contract is waiting? And maybe ask them where we can find our gear. It's still on your backs, one of the guards volunteered, and from the relative safe distance of his end of the corridor, Oliver noted. He glanced at the man and saw him make a twirling motion with his finger. Feeling sheepish, Oliver reached over his back and felt for the top of the pack. It was still there, and he shook his head. Lewis came to stand beside him. Way to impress the new employer, boss. Oliver shrugged, not dignifying his second with an answer. Let's go find out what the mission is. Lewis froze, giving him a wide-eyed stare. You mean you don't know? What if it goes against the interests of the pack? They assure me it doesn't, Oliver replied. They're fencers, Lewis reminded him. You know, move stolen goods for a living, look for the most advantageous bargain possible. These people lie for a living. Oliver rolled his eyes. They also have to honour the bargains they make, he told the man. Their reputations are built on it. Bargains are a power relationship, Lewis stated, with the most powerful of the partnership making the rules. What makes you think? Enough, Oliver snapped. The bargain is made and the agreement waits to be signed. Lewis groaned, but they'd reached the guards, so he closed his mouth and kept his opinion to himself. Oliver slid him a sideways look, but Lewis had schooled his face to blankness, and his expression gave nothing away. The guards looked them up and down, and then looked past them. Oliver followed their gazes and saw the other guards had closed the distance and still had their weapons drawn. If he and Lewis made the wrong move, he thought, and Lewis's warning about bargains being a power relationship echoed in his head. Stars, he hoped the man was wrong. Still, he didn't ignore the small voice that said Lewis might not be. Now was the time to prepare contingencies. If there was treachery in the bargain, then he'd best be prepared to break the letter of the law and be prepared to preserve the spirit, or, at the very least, his freedom. The guards took them through to a reception area, where their emergence created a small flurry of activity behind a desk. They have contracts to sign, the lead escort explained, but he didn't stop. Gerhard will give you the details. Oliver glanced back and saw one of the guards behind them peel off to stop by the desk. Feeling Lewis hesitate beside him, he placed a large palm squarely between his friend's shoulder blades and applied enough pressure to keep him moving forward. Their escort turned left and they followed, taking a corridor and then 3 flights of stairs until they reached another reception area, this one more opulently appointed than the last. Oliver noted the thick red and grey carpet beneath their feet and resisted the urge to drop to his knees and roll in it. He'd have to have more control over his beast than this. Lewis leant into him, and Oliver wondered if the man was having the same struggle. The carpet looked perfect for curling their toes in. He shifted his arm so it draped across Lewis's shoulders and squeezed. Lewis responded by leaning a little harder and then straightening, but he didn't try to shift Oliver's arm. People were definitely going to get the wrong idea about them, Oliver decided, and then decided he didn't care. There were some days when his beta was more gamma. He just wished this wasn't one of them. The secretary glanced up from behind the desk, took one look at the two who had arrived, and pressed a button. Mr. Carnelian will see you now, he informed them. Mr. Carnelian, huh? Oliver thought. I wonder what he is when he's at home. You two are almost more trouble to keep out of the auction ring than it's worth, was not the greeting he expected. Oliver raised his eyebrows in response. How did you come to that? It appears you waltzed yourself past my next-door neighbour, who is now lamenting granting you permission to make the leap to my premises. He has asked for first option should we decide to sell you on, and hired us to install the same security system on his building as we have on ours. So it's not all bad news, then, Oliver concluded, pretending nonchalance. Do we receive a commission for the sale? And does your neighbours have a name? A name? Carnelian asked. What makes you think I'd give you that? Well, it would be good to know who to avoid in future, Oliver explained, and who to send the apology to once we have completed your mission. Carnelian chuckled. Very droll, Mr. Landstrom, but I'm afraid I can't divulge my client's personal information. You understand. I do, and I'm pleased to see you holding to such a principle given they extend to us. I said client, not employees, Carnelian responded, and Oliver bared his teeth. I should think your principles apply to your employees even more so, given the security awareness you've so far displayed. But even if it doesn't, we're still your clients in that you've agreed to transport us. Carnelian bowed his head in agreement. This much is true. He waved them toward the 2 chairs in front of his desk. Please, take a seat. Oliver resisted the urge to ask the man where he would like the chair delivered, and sat, relieved when Lewis sat silently beside him. As they did, Carnelian looked up at their escort. You can leave us, he told them. There is nowhere for them to go, and they will not harm me. Twisting in his seat, Oliver thought the guard was going to argue. Instead, the man's lips tightened, and he inclined his head in acquiescence. Yes, sir. Carnelian watched him go, waiting to close the door behind him. Oliver heard the click of a locking mechanism sliding into place and glanced around the room. Carnelian hadn't been exaggerating when he'd said there was nowhere for him and Lewis to go. Oliver wasn't sure what to believe when it came to the man's claim that he and Lewis wouldn't harm him. Either that had been based on a quick character assessment, or it was false bravado. Whatever it was, Carnelian was correct. They were still on Alpha 9, in a room with one exit and hostile guards outside. Not to mention one interested party waiting for them to step beyond Nettle's door, and who knows who else he'd told. He settled back in his chair and studied Carnelian as he waited for the man to begin. Carnelian was of average human build, and even a little on the light side. Oliver suspected he worked out, but if he did, the guy trained for endurance, not bulk, and the suit hid the evidence. He wouldn't know until he saw Carnelian move. Despite his name, there wasn't any orange in his colouring. Carnelian looked to be in his mid-30s, with a healthy crop of carefully styled dark hair, deep blue eyes, and a face only slightly creased by age, anger, or amusement. His expression gave nothing away, but he returned Oliver's stare, second for second. Steepling his fingers under his chin, he said, "Tell me what you see, Mr. Landstrom." Oliver's lip curled before he could stop it, but he reined in his temper, his voice calm and even as he replied, "I see my employer wasting time, and I wonder what he's up to." Lewis gasped, but Carnelian gave a short chuckle. "Fair enough. You didn't strike me as a trusting soul. I'm glad to see I'm not mistaken." He glanced at Lewis. "And you?" "My client," Lewis replied shortly. Carnelian's eyebrows rose. "Very good, Mr. Havisham." He tapped a few keys on his keyboard, and the wall on one side of the office gave way to a screen, showing a girl of about 14 years. Her young face was determined, her grey eyes hard. "This is Aileen," Carnelian said by way of introduction. "Don't let her age fool you. She is one of the human assets of a local wolf pack." Oliver and Lewis stiffened, and the broker waved a hand placatingly. "Not one with whom your own ex-pack is at odds with." He flashed them a broad smile. "In fact, finding this little girl and bringing her back would earn you some clemency with both packs." He caught their hopeful expressions and shook his head. "Perhaps not enough to have your exile revoked. Not when Odyssey is involved. Although without their presence it would have almost guaranteed your reinstatement." Lewis sat forward, and Carnelian noticed his interest. "Almost," he reiterated. "Her condition on return would be the sticking point, and what she said about you once she was safely home. Records state she has quite the temper." "So where is she?" Oliver asked, and Carnelian frowned. "You don't listen very well, do you?" he asked. "I said you had to find her. That implies we don't know where she is." "And the client?" Oliver asked. "The client would not have come to me if they could find her." "But they're wolves," Lewis said. "They have their own assets. Why did they come to you?" Carnelian gave Oliver a sour look as he answered. "Your friend makes a good point, although he is bordering on being classified as someone who asks too many questions," he stated. Oliver shrugged. "He's my analyst, and as you say, he makes a good point. Why did the pack come to you?" "Because the child was taken and removed from Lupar territory, and the trail leads to a space where the clan has no representation or jurisdiction." "And?" Oliver prodded. Carnelian's expression became almost angry. "The clan believes the assets it would use to retrieve her are either being watched too closely for her safety to be guaranteed, or that those assets have been compromised," he stated, looking unhappy. "Or both?" Oliver pressed, and Carnelian shot him a hard look. "Or both," he agreed. "Do you know which it is?" Lewis asked, and Carnelian glared at him. "The clan indicated it would pursue those questions using its own resources." "Which means you offered and were told to mind your own business," Oliver thought. Interesting, but not unexpected. "Our task?" he pressed. "So far you've only told us that we need to retrieve her, and that we'll have to find her first. But you do have more information." We'll need it if we're to complete the task in a timely fashion. Or with any chance of success, Lewis added. Carnelian leaned back in his seat, his eyes shadowed, and Lewis and Oliver sat still, waiting. Finally, the broker tapped the keyboard. This is what we know, he said, as the information appeared on the screen. Aylin's star shadow. He paused as Oliver drew a sharp breath. You've heard of her? This time Oliver did curl his lip. Just the clan. Everyone knows this is a star shadow world, recently ceded them by the Human Federation as witnessed and brokered by Odyssey. Odyssey. Again, he noted, registering the mercenary group's presence as he said their name. And now we know why the Striders could not keep us. He sighed, the difficulty of their situation closing in around him. Carnelian took in the look on his face, but if he understood what Oliver was feeling, he didn't acknowledge it. Instead, he continued with his briefing. Aylin is 14 years old, almost 15 if the Star Shadow records are accurate, and I suspect they are. She was born and raised on Actravaran, so they're in a position to know. Born and raised, Oliver swallowed bile. Born and bred, more like, and never been out of wolf control. Not that he had anything against the Lupari, and the Star Shadows were one of the better clans, but still. And do Odyssey know? He asked. Carnelian's eyes sharpened. About Aylin? Oliver nodded. They are aware of her existence since she featured in one of their operations about. His eyes unfocused as he did the calculations. 5 or 6 years ago, just before Alpha 9 was ceded to the Star Shadows. And her significance? Oliver pushed, because the girl had to be of some importance. Carnelian momentarily froze, his eyes flickering from one of them to the other, and Oliver noted the moment the man decided to lie. The wolves wouldn't say, Carnelian replied, but my guess is she is of some importance to them. So how was she taken? Lewis challenged. The Lipari are not known for leaving their assets so easily accessible. She was travelling to undertake some training in the Actravaran system, the broker replied, and this time Oliver scented the lie. Doing his best to hide the fact, he kept his eyes on Carnelian's face as he asked the next question. Do they know who by? Carnelian's face closed, but this time Oliver smelt truth on his words. Rannoch's world. Oliver's heart sank. Are you sure? The client is. The Star Shadows. One of them. Oliver thought about asking which one, but decided he'd had enough word games. And the rest? He asked. We'll provide you assistance in your search and transport you as close to the location as you think you need for retrieval. We'll provide you with extraction and make the final handover. Once the girl is in our hands, your part of the bargain is done and we'll transport you to a safe location and forget where we left you for 3 standard months. 3 Alpha 9 months, Oliver corrected, and Carnelian gave him a tight smile. You stated 3 months. We operate only in standard months. If you were thinking in a different time frame, you should have specified. The contract's not signed, and I'm specifying it now, Oliver countered. Carnelian sighed. That would minimize our profits. But it would maximize our chances, Oliver replied. Carnelian's face went hard. It's not acceptable. Oliver stilled, raising a hand for silence when he heard Lewis draw a breath to protest. Carnelian's gaze flickered between them and settled on Oliver's face. I'm not sure you truly understand the situation, he stated, and the door behind them opened. Oliver was halfway out of his seat when the first shot was fired, point blank, into his skull. He dropped like a stone, vaguely aware of Lewis falling beside him.